iOS, Android, iOS, Linux, it doesn't matter. Even your Android TV can use NordVPN. What are you waiting for? Follow the link in the description.
I was a union steelworker for about 13 years, and I cut my teeth in heavy industry, chemical and mining. There was a chlorine plant in Henderson, Nevada that I worked at for about 8 years, and in 2013 we had a reactor explosion. The reactor essentially took liquefied anhydrous chlorine and introduced it into a mixed tank, essentially, of caustic, which is sodium hydroxide. And what it would do is it would chlorinate the sodium hydroxide and it would make industrial bleach, which is sodium hypochlorite, if anybody's interested. And it's an exothermic reaction which creates a lot of heat and expansion, and it's monitored very closely to make sure that the mixture is taking place inside parameters, because what will happen if it is overchlorinated, it could potentially explode, and anhydrous chlorine, liquefied chlorine, will expand 400 times to 1. So 1 cubic foot of chlorine liquid will expand into a huge green gas cloud that will envelop the area and potentially suffocate and kill everybody, which is why we all were trained for, hazardous environment. We had SCBAs and gas masks, that sort of thing. Well, in 2013, that's exactly what happened due to a faulty meter one of the instrument techs had installed. When they started it up, they were getting fake readings, and as a result, the reactor exploded. Now, I was in the plant some distance away with double hearing protection on. I had a radio, but I was starting up a huge 3-stage turbine chiller, and it's very loud, so I couldn't hear what was going on, and there was no wind that night. So this big green cloud started to envelop the area, and by the time I heard all the chatter on the radio, I started to smell it, and I knew I had to escape. I had an escape respirator, which is good for about 15 seconds. But I couldn't tell which direction I needed to run in because everybody was panicking on the radio. There was some bad communication, and as a result, I wandered into the middle of this green cloud, and I had to pick a direction. There was a second where I was trying to escape, and I started breathing the chlorine gas. For a second there, I really thought I was going to die, and I stopped panicking, and I was just resigned to my fate. For a second there, I thought I was going to die. I really did. But then, in the corner of my eye, I saw one of my coworkers off in the distance, and he was waving at me wildly. So I mustered up whatever I could, and I ran towards him as fast as I could. And by the time I reached him, I had collapsed and I was crawling. And they managed to drag me into the change house, where they put me in the shower, hosed me down. I was choking. I was vomiting in my mouth, foaming. Like, it was bad. Like, I really didn't know what was going on. My eyes were teared up. It was like, it was a very bad experience. When the last thing I remember is I woke up at the UMC burn center with 4 of my coworkers, and they treated us with sodium bicarbonate. It was a special treatment for that type of inhalation, and it was the only place in the southwest area that could treat us. And just so happens that UMC is here in town. So luckily, we survived relatively unscathed. But I had developed a bit of PTSD from it. And I didn't know this at the time. When I went back to work, every time a compressor would switch over to a new tank, it would make a loud bang sound, or every time a piece of equipment would start up, I would freak out, and I was a nervous wreck. I was afraid to do my job, but I wasn't talking to anybody. I didn't tell anybody what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. I just was just a mess, and I started drinking really, really heavily. I was drinking at work. I would sneak beers in my bag, and in between, my duties, I worked night shifts, so I was able to just take a few sips here and there, and I was getting through it. Well, long story short, that I was discovered, and they realized that's one of the first times I sought help. And I had to go into a rehab, and I had to confront these issues. It was a bad deal. It was a really, really bad deal. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, it kind of explains why I got into the profession I got into. I became a safety manager. Like, I worked my way into the safety department, and I had the title of safety engineer because of the training and skills that I had. I just started going back to school, and I was working on getting my chemical engineering degree. I still have like 30 credits to go to get that. And the safety engineer, he really kind of focuses on systems, how to improve safety in the systems that are operating, that sort of thing. Eventually, the plant closed down. I moved to a mine. I worked there for a couple of years, and I was back in the field doing operations. But I carried that with me. And then when the mine went bankrupt, my daughter was just born. So everybody moved out of state. They went to Elko, North Nevada, and they worked for the gold mines up there. Some of them got hired by Chevron, and they went to Texas and the Mississippi River. There were some plants over there. Well, since my daughter was born, my wife really wanted me to stay in town. So I had to pick a new profession. What is a boy to do? There's no mines, there's no chemical plants, there's none of that in Nevada. Well, what there was a heck of a lot of construction. And with my background and experience, I was able to make a lateral move into that industry. So I got into safety, construction safety. I was hired by a steelwork, Schuff Steel. Those are iron workers. I was a steel worker. So we had very similar backgrounds, but it was also very different. It was a big cultural change. And I worked with those guys for a couple of years, and now I'm managing safety for a large general contractor. And I'm not the head of my department, but I'm in charge of my shift. So essentially, I'm supervision off shift when the director's not there. So I'm middle management, but I'm pretty high up there. I'm right under the top spot. I got a decent level of responsibility. Well, in order to get to where I'm at, I had to go back to school again, and I had to start taking a lot of behavioral psychology courses. Because one of the issues that we had in construction was we aggregate all the statistics of people getting hurt, and we try to figure out, well, why is this happening? Like, say, for example, if guys are falling off ladders or they're not wearing their safety glasses or hard hats, why is that? What is it about that? And we had to do a lot of research in the field. And what we discovered was a lot of the times guys didn't want to wear their safety glasses. And this, I can't make this up, because they don't look cool. The ones that we issue them are stupid looking, and they make them look like idiots. And we discovered that if we purchased glasses that are fashionable and the guys like to wear them, there's a 70 or 80% chance greater that they'll wear them throughout the shift. So that was fascinating to me. Something as simple as the way something looks. They didn't care about their eyes. They cared about the way they looked. That just fascinated me. It really fascinated me. So I went off the deep end and I started really diving into psychology. Now, once I started learning about psychology and the way we communicate and how we interact with each other, humans evolved to be able to see each other. There's a lot of unspoken language that happens when we're talking to each other. We say a lot with our bodies. We speak with our faces. There's tone, there's inflection, there's a ton of stuff. There's a ton of things going on when we're talking to somebody in real life. And you lose all that the second you're online. I think texting is one of the most horrible things that's happened to our society. You can't get any of that. It is so easy to misinterpret people when you're texting. Generally speaking, we believe that people are talking to us in either the tone or emotions that we currently have, that we're talking to them when we're typing, or we think we use the voices of them that we hear when they're speaking online. So an online persona is generally how we hear people. And if they don't talk at all, it's just open to interpretation. And I got to tell you, I think a big, huge part of our problem that we have with the reason why we get into the situations that we get into is because of misinterpretations from texting. The comments section is vile. Twitter is terrible. Twitter forces you to respond in these little short, one sentence responses, and you have to try to cram as much information into that as you possibly can. And on top of that, it rewards bad behavior. You get likes and dislikes, which in previous videos I've discussed is almost the same as taking drugs, and you're rewarded for snapbacks and comebacks and witty retorts and that sort of thing. And it's just terrible. It's absolutely awful. The problem I see with social media, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff, is that we have not evolved to be plugged into this digital world. And I think that it's starting to blur the lines where people are losing their grip on what is real and in front of them on a daily basis, and they're replacing it with their online life, this persona that they've created. I've done that. I've created a persona. When I do my videos, they're edited. I leave out a lot of the things, the mistakes, bad camera angles. I flex and I'm under the lighting, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't look that great. So I'll back up, and all of a sudden you can see my shoulders, and there you go. It's something as simple as that. We are edited. We are not our real selves. What we present to the world is our best version of ourselves. Now, some of us want to show the mistakes and the imperfections and the flaws, and that is the focus of their channel. They just present themselves as who they are. But I don't know, if you really think about it, are you really presenting everything about you, or are you chopping it down to just the little bits that you think might be interesting? And if you get a good response from what you show or produce, are you going to repeat that and try to replicate that? And I would have to say, for me, the answer is yes, absolutely. I'm looking for something that gets repeat engagement, and I'm going to try to replicate that because I want my channel to grow, as I would imagine most people do. So here we are in our little online worlds, and it can become an obsession. So Jordan Peterson has an excellent podcast that's on Spotify with Joe Rogan, and I think it came out a couple days ago, and I highly suggest listening to it. But he goes into, amongst other things, nihilism has taken hold in our culture and is the root of all evil. So what is nihilism? Essentially boiled down, if you look at the existentialist view of life, it is that, we are mortal, and we are all faced with the fact that we're all going to die. No matter what we do, no matter what we accomplish, no matter what, we're all going to die. So the nihilistic view is to rebel against that and say, well, if that's the case, if it's all meaningless, then what does it matter? And nihilism is poison. Nihilism is the root of all evil. And I really, truly believe that. A nihilistic person, if left unchecked, if that person does not find some kind of meaning in his life, they will become bitter, resentful, and on top of that, they will take their revenge out on the world. They will hurt others just for the spite of it. Because what does it matter? And I'll be honest with you, they have a good argument. Like, there's a good plausible argument for why nothing really matters. And we've lost everything that is a structure to how we find meaning. You know, when I grew up, I went to Catholic grade school, and I didn't really buy into it, but I had that guiding principle, plus I had the community, and if we stepped too far out the lines, there was always somebody there that would correct you. In the Marine Corps, we bought in totally. We're not just in the Marines, we are Marines, and we had that as our substructure, if you will, and it was the guiding principle, and we were there for our brothers, and the brothers, it's all that jazz. And then when you get out into the real world and you're alone and you have to find your own way, and you are now divorced from that, where do you derive your meaning from? And that's been my great struggle. Obviously, I put a lot of my identity into powerlifting, and I struggle with the fact that I'm in the twilight of being competitive, and I may or may not soon have to retire from the sport. And for the first time in my competitive years, I'm actually at a point where I'm a competent lifter and I have a chance to do something that's kind of exceptional, and I'm 47 already. It's like, oh man, I'm finally starting to get good at this, and now I'm looking at having to quit for my own health. Like, I'm beating myself up, guys. Like, the injuries are starting to compound, and it just doesn't make sense to keep doing this to myself, especially when I have a family and kids. And again, we'll go back to the little bubble we're in, this little fake world. I got a large amount of satisfaction from showing off my lifts and getting praise and even negative comments. Like, there's even some dopamine stuff going on with that when you start getting into it with other people online. That can become addictive. So now I'm replacing my real world lifting, all of my relationships at the gyms, all the people that we talk to on a daily basis. I'm replacing that with this online little fake world. And yes, the conversations are real. Yes, there is somebody on the other end of the phone, but we're not seeing them. For all intents and purposes, mentally, they don't actually exist. There's no interaction outside of this little box we're holding and we're texting on. And we find that we're being performative for this small little community that we're in, when if you were to shut off everything electrical in your house right now, if you lost power, if your phone batteries died, you had no connection to the internet, and you were forced to confront the real world, you would find that there's a whole lot going on, and this thing is completely irrelevant to it. It is. So with all the drama that's going on online, the little bickering and the going back and forth, once I turn the phone off and I shift my focus back to what I'm supposed to be focused on, I find that it's completely 100% irrelevant to anything that I'm doing in real life. And it's good to know that, because if you ever get caught up too much, the best thing you could do for yourself is just unplug and literally smell the roses. I can come out here in my backyard, sit down on the porch that I made with my bare hands, and I can breathe deep and take in the senses of the wind and the garden that my wife cultivates every morning. We hear the little birds chirping. There's a lizard crawling on the wall. There's so much going on around me right now as I'm just looking around, talking into this microphone. And it is completely detached from everything that we're doing in this little tiny community that we've cultivated. Like, there has no bearing on any of this. In fact, when I look around, I look at all the things that I got to fix. This fence over here the sun's starting to fade and crack. I got to fix the pavers we started putting down in the backyard that attaches to the little patch of grass we have. I've got a lot of work to do. I got to paint the house eventually. I got to plumb in the shower for the pool. And I'm thinking, wow, just this conversation that I'm having, well, it's a distraction, frankly. So I'll wrap this up, guys. Here's the deal. I really feel like we need to make sure that we're not losing touch with reality. This is fake. This can be taken away from us at any time. Channel can be deleted. YouTube might go out of business. Who knows? Maybe they'll, YouTube loses Google money. They're looking at the business model. So who knows? Who knows how much longer we're going to be around? I might not. I don't know how much longer I'm going to compete. And then what am I going to do? I might, do something different. I don't know. Like, how long am I going to keep making these videos for? It's a reminder that this is not real life. Right on the other side of this wall, I'm standing in my backyard, looking around my garden, like I said, and inside, my wife is probably sitting on the couch, doing insurance paperwork. I know she's filling out applications for the kids' school. We're sending them to private school, which is going to... Well, there goes my new Mustang. That's all I can say. Real life is happening right now, and I have to focus first and foremost on providing for my family. Like I said in previous videos, I have goals. I have intimations of, maybe going to Moscow next year and competing on the world stage. I qualified for it. And boys can talk all the crap you want, but this doesn't change the fact that I still qualified and I'm going. If I can pull it off. I don't know. I got to get a passport, and can I really afford a trip to Moscow? Maybe I'll compete at Nationals here in Vegas in June or July, I think it is. Regardless, there's real life going on. I want you guys to ask yourselves a very serious question. Very, very serious question. Andrew, this one's kind of pointed at you because I have concerns about you, buddy. If you lost YouTube, if it goes away right now, all social media, what do you have that's outside of this? What does your life look like if it's unplugged from the internet? Think about it, guys. This is not real life. This is just fun and games.